welcome to 6460, where I tell you 6 of my favorite things in celebration of the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. So I'm going to jump right into it. This is our last love kind of focused theme for the month of February. LWAXANA in love. So, just a little bit of background for people who might not be familiar with LWAXANA Troi. She is often called the Queen of Star Trek. The actress's name is Majel Barrett. She was the wife of Gene Roddenberry and the voice of the computer. She was also Nurse Chapel in TOS. And in later iterations, she was a LWAXANA Troi, the mother of Deanna Troi. And Deanna Troi was a counselor on TNG. And we saw LWAXANA in TNG and DS9. And it was really funny because when I was thinking about the different ways we could talk about love in Star Trek, and by now, I'm mainly focusing on the TV shows, not the movies or the books so much, even though we will talk about those later on in the year. But every time LWAXANA showed up, there was some kind of confusion and some lusting going on. She was a very robust, full of joy and life type of character, and in almost every episode, there were some shenanigans or attempted shenanigans going on. So we're going to talk about her for a hot minute. So second on my list, number 2 here, when we're talking about LWAXANA, is in TNG Season 4, Episode 22, called Half-Life. And her husband happens to belong to, and this is not her first husband, this is, I believe, the second, possibly third. The first husband was Deanna Troi's husband, who was human and a member of Starfleet. So this is her second, third, possibly, husband, who happens to belong to a culture that believes an individual's usefulness ends at the age of 60. So even though he's a brilliant scientist and has a, loving wife / fiance, he's got to die. And so, LWAXANA's trying to get the Federation to step in, trying to convince him to go against all of his cultural beliefs because she loves him. But at the end of the day, she realizes that loving him means supporting him in fulfilling his the expectations of his culture, and she beams down to the planet with him as he goes to end his life at the very, very ridiculously young age of 60. Third, we see LWAXANA again in TNG in an episode called The Cost of Living. That's Season 5, Episode 20, where she's planning to marry a man that she has never met before. So they managed to do this meetup here on the Enterprise. And, LWAXANA is just very emotional, very vivacious, just outgoing and loud. And she has class and decorum in her own way. But the gentleman that she is about to marry is from a very strict culture. He has a minister of decorum with him. And needless to say, it does not work out well. And she does not end up marrying this gentleman. But it's a very funny episode. She also helps out Alexander, Worf's son, on the show as well. But it was very funny. So for the fourth of my 6 for 60, we're now into Deep Space Nine. And she shows up in the very first season in episode 17, The Forsaken, where, I'm sorry, and I forgot to mention that every time you see LWAXANA in a TNG episode, she's also lusting behind Picard and making little jokes and things like, "Oh, Picard, I know what you're thinking." It's just really funny how she just rips him every time she shows up in TNG. But now we're on to Deep Space Nine, episode 17, the Forsaken, where she fixates on Odo, just latches right onto him. And she's really the first person we see break through Odo's walls. He's very strict. He's a pillar of the community there. One of the running jokes is that the shopkeepers on the promenade can set their watch by Odo because he's dependable. He's going to do his patrols, and he's just justice in a suit. Very uptight. But LWAXANA is able to break down those walls, and they develop what I like to think of as a very deep love. It wasn't platonic. It wasn't romantic. It was just an amazingly deep connection. And we see the beginning of that here in the Forsaken, when they get trapped in the turbo lift together, and they make that initial step towards that deep connection. And it just continues. So in the next episode, you see her in Deep Space Nine in season 3, episode 10, Fascination. And I think I mentioned this an episode or so ago, where she actually makes other people fall in love. They're having a gratitude festival on Deep Space Nine. It's a Bajoran holiday. You go around, you tell people, Peldor joy. And she is having a midlife moment. And she has xanthe fever, which causes her to make people around her very amorous. So folks are just running around. Jake Sisko is chasing Kira, and it's just a lot of confusion, and it's a very funny episode. So, and my last one, the 6 for 60 for LWAXANA in Love, is again Deep Space Nine, season 4, episode 21, which is just a beautiful episode. It's called The Muse. So LWAXANA has found another husband. Unfortunately, in his culture, male children belong to the husband of the mother. And she, I guess, didn't realize this before she married this man. So it's not that they're in charge of raising them. It's that she will not see her son again. They are taken away and raised completely in a male environment, and women are not allowed to interact with them at all. So she's terrified this man is getting ready to take her child away from her. So she comes to Deep Space Nine, to Odo. And in their culture, Odo's trying to figure out a way to help her, and he realizes that, what I said before, the kids belong to the husband, not the father. So all he has to do is declare his love for LWAXANA in a way that the current husband will believe that they are truly in love, and that will be their divorce. And so he does, Odo starts with a kind of a generic, oh, she's great and blah, and she's lovely. And the husband is like, no, you could be saying that about anybody. I don't believe you. And then Odo really speaks from his heart. And, he talks about, he doesn't say specifically, oh, when we were trapped in a turbo lift, but he does talk about how, he was small and diminished and not living life really. He was really just kind of existing and not living until he met LWAXANA, and the friendship, just the beautiful relationship that they had developed over the years. That's when he started to live, and it's just a beautiful, touching moment. And that's a good standalone episode. as well if you're not familiar with a lot of Deep Space Nine, or if you have somebody who's not all into the space battles and the fighting and the drama. Maybe you have somebody who's more into I don't want to say rom-coms, but whatever. People who are more interested in relationships in shows, this would be an excellent episode to introduce them to Deep Space Nine and Star Trek in general, because it's very moving. So that's my 6 for 60. I hope you enjoyed it. That's the end of the month of love. There are no more episodes planned about love. We're going to go back to spaceships and blowing stuff up and science and all of those good things that you traditionally associate with Star Trek and other science fiction. So again, hope you all enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think about LWAXANA. If you enjoyed her in other series as well, or just any other things you'd like to talk about during this year. Okay? Live long and prosper, dear friends. So thinking about LWAXANA on TNG and DS9, always looking for love, always finding love, and I thought about, oh, it would be funny if the Enterprise or DS9 was like the Love Boat, the old TV show from back in the day. And so I did a search for it, and sure enough, SNL did a skit with Patrick Stewart as the captain of the Love Boat. It's really funny, and I've included the link to that skit on YouTube in the comments.